we have an hour. That's a lot, and that's very little. I see so many familiar names on the list of viewers, so welcome to all of people I know and I don't know. That's absolutely amazing having you here. The webinar is being recorded, so if at any point of time you will like to come back to it and see it one more time and share it with some of your friends, yes, it's possible. It will be on our SIETAR YouTube channel. It will be available a few days after the webinar. Again, with the organizational elements, one more time, I will just ask you to write all the comments in the checkbox, all the questions in the question and answer box. That will really make it easier for us to manage the meeting today. And it's absolutely a pleasure to see that so many people want to participate in webinars organized by SIETAR Europa. So have a lovely hour. And Olga, over to you. You start.
Thank you, Agnieszka. Thank you. Welcome to everyone once again, and good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to all of you joining us from all over the world, from all the diverse countries. And it's just, I'm so excited and so thankful to all of you for, joining us, for investing your time to learn more and to discuss things about Russian culture. And I'm also very thankful to SIETAR Europa for providing me with this opportunity to share things with such a great audience. And of course, thank to Agnieszka, who was helping me in preparing that the system would work, and for me to get accustomed how to operate certain buttons here. And I only hope that everything will go well and the system doesn't fail, and internet will also be okay. So welcome again. And before we start, I would like to again comment on the variety of cultures represented. That was actually originally my first question, which I don't have to pose again because I already see the diversity of the audience. And the next question that I would like to ask you is if you have an opportunity to do business with Russians before. You can just say yes or no, or any other comments that you would like to give. Just for me, it's a point of interest on the one hand, and probably it will give me a certain, idea of being more aware of certain, items that I would consider during my presentation. Very little yes, no, very little not yet, very limited experience, very little, okay, academic cooperation with Russia, trainers in my webinars, have been mostly as a tourist, but plan to do business. Great. So the contacts have been already there. Some of you had an opportunity to deal with Russians in different contexts, education included. And I just hope that this webinar will help us all to understand each other even better. Okay, great. Thanks again. And before I really get to the topic, I would comment on the question that I received from one of the participants, and I see his name, but I'm not sure whether he would like to name him or not, so I wouldn't. But thanks to this question, Patrick, he actually asked me before the webinar what kind of Russians I would refer during my presentation. And that was a very meaningful question, actually. And it made me think that probably I would have better called my webinar Doing Business in Russia. Because what I really comment on, what I really clarify, I would refer more to the traditional Russian values. And I know those Russians who live in Russia, who've been born in Russia and live in Russia, for most of their life better than those who are abroad. But of course, there is no single Russian, but many varieties that differ geographically, historically, generationally, etc. So thank you for this question, and I should probably refer to those Russians who have spent some time abroad and have some international experience, which inevitably influence their cultural behavioral patterns. But still, as I said, I would refer to those Russians I know better, those who live in Russia. But of course, it does not exclude that you know, this same or similar traditional values remain kind of sort of behavioral patterns that guide them through their activities, whether in education or in business. Okay, and having said that, as a follow-up to this kind of clarification, I would add that in my webinar, I would refer to the traditional Russian values, which have been generated by the cultural detective team. And thus, I again express my deep gratitude to the cultural detective team, and especially to George Simons, who actually introduced the cultural detective methodology to me back in 2011 at my first SIETAR Congress in Krakow. And I have been applying this methodology ever since in my teaching, seminars, workshops, as well as diversified cards, which I also will be using here at this webinar. And I am really enjoying using these diversified cards with my students, clients, and I've been offered to translate some of the cards, some of the packages, cultural packages into Russian, including the package on Russia. And the progress is still kind of controversial, but we enjoy the process. And thank you, George, again for all your generous sharing and sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. Okay, I really hope that I will have time to cover the key items of all this outline that I prepare. And before I start, I would just say a few words about myself. I was born in Russia. In fact, I was born in the Soviet Union, but I've been living in Russia all my life. And although I have quite a broad international experience via, you know, diverse activities such as fellowships, I've been a fellow Fulbright on a scholarly exchange with the California State University in the year 2005, 2004, 2005, there in Germany, and I have visited quite a number of countries, around 15, 20 countries for the conferences, seminars, trainings, and I have also been working as a visiting professor in Finland, Germany, France, Grenoble Alpes University, the picture below, and Young Jyväskylä University of Applied Sciences in Finland. There are some other partner universities I visit very often. I'm also very interested in the field of higher education, primarily intercultural perspectives of higher education, and I've got quite a number of publications in professional journals. And here is one of the books that I edited together with a partner of mine from International Association of Higher Education, which is on Amazon. So I have, you know, diverse interests, and of course, cross-cultural field is something that I really, really love, and here, you know, my whole passion, my interests are, you know, located. And here is a map of Russia, which I put here for two reasons. The first reason is that I made this huge move from the far east of Russia, where I spent most of my time, to the from the far east to the far east, west of Russia, where I'm now located. I live in Kaliningrad. I've been living here only for 4 years. So it's been a real, meaningful, huge move to me 4 years ago. And now I think that I have more awareness and understanding of feelings and kind of mindset of those who move from one culture to another, because the subculture in Kaliningrad is very different from that one from the Far Eastern one. So I'm kind of feeling now more confident in coaching people, like experts and people who adjust to a new culture. Another reason why I just refer to the map of Russia is that looking at the map, I'm tempted to just comment not only on geographical variety of Russians, but also on their attitude to a few other questions, such as, for example, environmental issue or sense of urgency, which are all preconditioned by the vastness of the territory. So 9 time zones. And we have a joke that when when Moscow wakes up, Vladivostok is, ready to retire. So there's no way you can schedule or organize, telephone calls or meetings between Moscow and Vladivostok at the same time. So Vladivostok would wait for Moscow to wake up and to kind of send orders, because the country has been centralized for so many years and centuries. Relaxed in the first part of the day, but then when they do receive the orders from Moscow, it's time to kind of retire. So why to bother? Because tomorrow the orders and instructions coming from Moscow might be very different. It all depends. It's a joke, of course, but there is a lot of meaning. Another issue is environmental. I don't think that we take good care of our nature and environment just because somewhere unconsciously we would tend to think that, there's so much resources, so much potential, so much natural resources. So if we kind of pollute it one place, we can move to another one. So the unconscious appreciation of this diversity is not very complementary, is not very good, but actually this is something that I come up with when I, think of this attitude. Historically, also Russia obtained this huge territory within, the last few centuries, which adds, of course, to the variety and duality of the Russian nature. And I gradually move here to this same question of identity again. Who are Russians? European, Asian, Eurasian, traditional, Soviet, Westernized? Yes, I would actually reply to all of those questions as yes, because, having in mind that the varieties of Russians are so numerous and the ambiguity of Russian nature is so recognizable, many people refer to Russia as a riddle, like it is illustrated here in a saying of a very famous Russian poet, Fyodor Tyutchev, that it's very hard to grasp, to understand Russia. Yes, Agnieszka,
I just wanted to ask you, thank you, one of the participants and maybe some other also didn't hear clearly where are you right now in Russia? So could you repeat, as giving your identity, where are you right now? And
okay. Thank you. And probably I would go back to the, I'm not sure whether I can go back, but I will tell that I now live in Kaliningrad, which is on the west. Actually, it's a small enclave which borders with Poland and Lithuania, right on the Baltic Sea, okay? And it is separated from the mainland Russia by other countries. So we are kind of a small island in Europe. It's a former German territory, which Russia received after the Second World War. Okay? So, of course, it has a very different identity. And me living my life in the Far East, I find it quite a different culture. Okay, thank you for the question. I will come back to these topics that I would like to share with you on the traditional Russian values that constitute the core of the Russian mentality. And those are the powerful ties of community and friendship, deep sense of spirituality and soulfulness, abiding respect for faith and destiny, perseverance, and creative problem solving. Of course, there are more of those values which would be given to you by people from, different parts of Russia, then by different generations. I would relate to this point again during my webinar. But those are the traditional values I would like to comment on. And I would start with the key success factor, actually, to deal with Russians. And this is relationships, friendship, and soulfulness. Friendship in Russia is really a very deep interpersonal connection that implies both obligation and expectation of mutual support. So interpersonal reality stands for external in many contexts, including business contexts. Because sincerity and depth of emotions are valued over impersonal objectivity, people in Russia tend to kind of have difficulty to rely on objective methods of analysis and causality. They would express the way they feel, both good and bad feelings, and attention to what other people, they pay attention to what other people say about their feelings. And this is considered very important in a variety of contexts, including, as I said, the business context. From this follows that relationships in Russia are part of the shared reality, and they are often, very often, more important than results. Having said that, I would recommend that if you're going to do business in Russia, you have to have someone you trust. You have to have a friend out there who will actually be able to open new horizons to you, and you will get more opportunities to do things the way you want, the way you plan, and you will obtain more options. Let me give you my personal example. I moved to Kaliningrad 4 years ago, and I had only 2 friends in Kaliningrad. No job, no accommodation. So these 2 friends were very helpful in finding accommodation and finding a job to me. I'm not sure whether my formal CV would have played such a great role when I was applying for my job in Immanuel Kant Baltic Federal University, but that's how it worked for me. And then having lots of conversations with those Russians who are living abroad, working abroad, including my daughter, who's been living in Germany for 8 years so far, working for GE. All of them, including my daughter, would comment or reflect on their experience like this. If we meet someone, if we meet an individual who would display similar attitudes to friendship, sincerity, relationships that we are accustomed to, we would be more loyal to those people for some reason. I mean, sometimes it just comes out of your conscious. It's just, sometimes you kind of do not expect it from you, but it's there. It's the reflection that if there is this bonding, if there is these relationships with people you're doing business outside Russia, but they would display, they would resonate, echo with the same attitudes towards friendship, soulfulness, and relationships, you would have more loyalty from each other. And I could go on and on with other examples, of course, but I would probably stop here because, it may go, it may actually be a long story, and probably I will comment more, you know, to your questions, or in the end, sharing more my personal stories. But here is the radius of trust that is very important. Radius of trust in Russia is low because we tend to really trust those who are close, not the government. And, you know, it's also a point of relationships when you try to negotiate, when you negotiate things. Here's a question, right?
We have a question. Yes, Yvonne asked, what do you exactly mean with soulfulness?
Soulfulness implies sincere attitudes, emotions, commitment to the person you are speaking or dealing with. You know, to reveal the soul means to be open, to be really very sincere, vulnerably sincere, which takes courage, of course, but you can have a lot achieved with the person whom you bond with, whom you feel like, you know, someone you can trust deeply and be sincere with. Okay, thank you for the question. And I guess we can go further. And another traditional value to consider when you do business with Russians is this no control over the world attitude, which is related to fatalism and opposed to positivism. Look, since one thinks and acts as if not able to always rely on objective methods of analysis and logic, people tend to rely on luck and fortune. Like Yemelya. Yemelya is a very famous character from the Russian fairy tale who's been sitting on the oven, riding an oven around, having been doing nothing to earn his living, but in the end of the story, he would receive anything one would wish to be happy. Beautiful wife, lots of wealth, lots of health, anything and everything. Why? That's a good question that I have been hearing from many of my international students, clients, and colleagues. And it's very hard to explain why, because, you know, the only answer would be he turned to be lucky. He kind of received this luck, this fortune. From where? From somewhere, from the heaven, from God, from anywhere, okay? And I know it may sound odd, but the realm of uncontrollable and thus unconceivable is broader than expected by an individual from a Western culture. And it makes direct opposition to pragmatism. The course of events is beyond individual control, and things may get worse or go wrong at any moment. This is the message that we ingrain historically. There are lots of historical reasons to it. And of course, it does have implications in business, relate to the sense of responsibility, for example, which an individual takes for his life. We do lack, very often we, you know, lack this sense of responsibility. And this is something I am doing research on this, you know, authorship of one's life, the responsibility that an individual has to take for his life to become a master, an author of his life. A very significant, a very meaningful topic here in Russia. And it, of course, it influences the Russian management style. And I speak here of the so-called learned helplessness of the middle managers, which is historically preconditioned, since there has always been someone higher in rank, like Tsar, landlord, etc., who would come to make decisions for you, who would be in charge for your destiny. And people learn to be helpless in many ways. There is a saying in Russian, "Вот приедет барин, барин нас рассудит." Literally, it means, here barin, which is landlord, comes to make decision for us. It is changing, by generations. The younger generation is getting different. They are more and more, they're getting more and more responsible for what they do in life. But the issue is still there. And I would like you to think and comment on the two options that, actually there are three options that are offered here in the diversity choice card regarding the two topics I covered, which are friendliness, friendship, community, friendship, sincereness, and a no control over the world attitude. Okay?
Before we go into the question, we have another question. Is English language considered the second language?
Well, the English language is very important nowadays because of this globalization. But historically, since the Soviet Union was isolated from the rest of the world for so many years, the approach they tend to teach English was more kind of to teach grammar, to teach reading and translating rather than speaking. So it still prevails, this approach, although the communicative style now is more and more, you know, increasing and getting more important. But in schools, English is a second language. All students have to study, have to take.
Yeah, we have already some answers with your question.
Okay.
People seem to go for C.
For C, wonderful, wonderful. That means that I made it a little bit clearer of where we actually, you know, what we actually focus on when we do things with, you know, internationally. Expressing your feelings about the subject under negotiation, right? And show enthusiasm and working together. Very, very important and very meaningful when you do things with Russians. Thank you. And then the next one is, why do Russians often say, we will try to finish the work on time, or perhaps it will work? What do you think of the variants here to continue this topic? I should probably open chat to see that.
Yeah, we have already first answer. Let's wait. Yeah, the statistics goes for B.
B is more popular. B. Okay.
B is the only one being popular.
Yeah.
Oh no, we have an A.
Yeah, someone said A. Say A. Which, I mean, may be true as well, because it depends a lot on an individual and on the context. But B would probably be the one I would go for, because, you know, people are not sure about, you know, people are used to instability in the situations, in different situations, and they prefer to be vague just in case they wouldn't be able to produce the desired results. They wouldn't say yes for 100%, because you never know what will happen, what tomorrow will bring from Moscow, from somewhere else. To be on the safe side, they would say, we will try, rather than we will do.
We have the additional question. Does the attitude of fatalism mean that people are not inclined to self-criticism?
Yes and no. And the criticism is the sensitivity to criticism is one of the issues that I will comment on a little bit later. But well, actually, what I would like to say here is criticism is appreciated when there is when it is constructive. We call it constructive criticism. It's not, you know, something that you would criticize, saying that it's all, you know, bad about you, about the situation and everything, and you wouldn't come up with a certain, you know, new perspectives and offers. which would also be appreciated. So I wouldn't say that it is connected directly, fatalism and the attitude to criticism. I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. We have comment, so I will start with a comment and then we have a question. We have a comment that Get Hosted said Russia has a very high degree of uncertainty, avoidance. So I wonder about answer B, vogue. Yeah, so there is this
answer B,
doubt whether this, I guess, Kirsten, your intention is about whether it's not too delicate. I don't know if I'm reading the question correctly. Yes, it seems a contradiction. Okay.
Yeah, it is a contradiction. Yeah, it is a contradiction. And we'll see a lot of other contradictions, you know, during my presentation, and, you know, with all your questions and answers, you will see how many controversy we may find in any of the messages. On the one hand, yes, Russia is very high on uncertainty avoidance, because you know, there are lots of sets and regulations and laws that people have to, you know, to follow and submit to certain, you know, obligations. On the other hand, we tend to really accept uncertainty as something unavoidable, because it has always been uncertainty in Russia regarding the policy, regarding the economic system, you know, directions people would focus, and laws they would adopt. Every day there might be a different set of laws. So people are very often just confused and say, okay, forget about it. We'll just do something by our own. And I would refer to a book which has recently been published by a friend of mine from the Far East, who call it The Art of Unruled Life. Unruled life. When nobody rules people in Russia, they would have more nice ways to take care of themselves and to do things the way they like, rather than, you know, following the fast-changing rules and obligations. Yes, I agree, lots of contradiction.
And we have two questions from Tanya and Patrick. I guess they are very similar, so I will read them together. The first question is, with this fatalistic thoughts, how do you ensure deadlines are met? And the second one, which is in the same field, I guess, are you saying that for a German or a Dutch manager, it would be difficult to get a Russian employee to accept responsibility for getting a task done on time and right?
Okay, very, very meaningful questions. And here, I would say that deadlines are still desired, but it's kind of, you know, something that you probably would not be seeing in all the contexts. Regarding the German or Dutch managers that would probably have difficulties to get a Russian employee to accept responsibility, well, there might be this, I mean, you might, you know, face this lack of responsibility from anyone. I think that from, you know, from people from any culture. Here in Russia, if they see, if a Russian sees the meaning, the value to do something in order to achieve, to improve, to accomplish something that is meaningful, he would do anything to achieve, to do, and to improve. The point is, he has to really realize it and understand it, you know, that it's something that is very, very meaningful to him. Then he would be able to cope with the overpowering challenges and barriers and do things appropriately, on time, and at a nice standard.
Okay, we have a kind of comment, but I guess a comment inviting you, Olga, also to comment on this from Elena. The most productive criticism in Russia environment is to first compliment a lot Russian issues in general, great culture, cuisine, beauty of women, etc. And after that, you can discuss any critical issue related personally to this particular person.
Okay, there is a lot in this comment. And I would relate this to the art of establishing nice atmosphere and developing friendly personal relationships. which inevitably implies that you share something that is good about your partner, not necessarily going deeply and broadly into compliments and, you know, just taking half of your time, you know, to pay these compliments. But it would be received, I think, with appreciation if there is something that you would first say with appreciation. Again, I would consider personally that this is something that would work in any culture. Okay?
We have another sorry, comment and question at the same time regarding the question that we have still on the screen with the diversity choice. Would answer C be an explanation to a certain extent as well? Maybe I can imagine that such an answer may be an appropriate way of trying to evade trouble or to lose one's face. It's a question from Alfred. Olga?
Maybe some disruption, I think. Disruption. Yes, as I said, well, actually, I do not say no categorically that they wouldn't be hiding the fact. There might be such a context where they would hide the fact. But just when we choose, we just choose the option which seem to be kind of more prevailing over other options. And I don't say that, you know, they would always be sincere and trying to actually displaying all the facts about something that they have already, that has already gone wrong. A little more about negotiation patterns, behavioral patterns when negotiating with Russians further on. Okay, thank you for this question. Let's move on, and here is a very important issue to consider when doing business with Russians is leadership. Okay, leadership style in Russia is characterized as bureaucratic with no democracy, which is true. And as you can see from this picture, it's just the personal approach, one person in charge individually through the official channel. He would connect with the trusted, efficient lieutenant, someone he knows and trusts, to be efficient and to deal with a sub-team in order to achieve quick results, while the rest of the actions might be slowly implemented because it could be very, very, very bureaucratic. Okay, so efforts made by managers to promote business through official channels are likely to founder on the rocks of bureaucracy and apathy. However, using key people, friends, and personal alliances, the system is often bypassed and the result achieved. By the way, this is the behavioral pattern that we may refer to as the so-called creative problem solving, as it is put by cultural detective T. When people find their own ways to do things, no matter how the system works, no matter what barriers would occur on the way, who would cramp or detain, okay, just on the way. Russian culture is very hierarchical. Power distance is huge. So this card illustrates the importance of hierarchy in business. And it's true that if you come to your first meeting with Russians in presence of a high-ranking person from your company, that would be received as a sign of goodwill and commitment to doing business. That's true, that's true, that's true, I must admit. You have to take care of that, you know, especially the first time you meet Russians, you'd better bring someone of a high rank, just to prove that you're committed, that your intention is serious, and you would have more success. Okay, let's go to the engagement style of Russians. And you're welcome with your questions. I would stop after I cover this next topic to discuss more about leadership and engagement style of Russians, because they are kind of overlapping. Okay.
I will just make one comment that we have still 15 minutes to engage in this webinar, so.
My God. Okay, so this is
with Russian approach. I'm sorry.
half of what I prepared. So I don't know whether we have to be, you know, faster or, you know, do the way we do, but you know, we'll have some times left behind. No problem. We will continue the next time. Continue by discussing it, you know, by correspondence. You're welcome to connect with me, and I would be happy to continue this discussion. But anyway, the engagement style of Russians, okay, it is characterized as emotional driven, explicit ways of expressing opinions and arguments, according to Hammer, he's inventor of conflict styles. And this is true again, and this leads me to the point of conflicts. Conflict is usually personalized in Russia, and it tends to have negative connotation still, because it leads to breaking relationships. I know that in the Western cultures, it's more, you know, depersonalized, and it is received as an opportunity to solve and to go further, not in Russia. A non-conflict person here in Russia is a synonym to a weak-willed person. And then the attitude to compromises tend to remain negative, because not to win very often here in Russia equals to losing one's face. And thus, compromise is often viewed as manifestation of absence of guiding principle. Russian people are inclined towards judgmental attitudes, I think, and categorical expression of difference of opinions. And I would refer to Richmond Yale here, who is very good in researching Russian culture. And an example that he gives in his book is that whenever you see the two Russians speaking with each other, you would probably think that they're going to fight physically, because they are so emotionally driven and so categorical in their expressions. But you know, this kind of emotional expressions does not necessarily presuppose any kind of physical insult. That would come, they would certainly come down, and they would continue taking peacefully right after the emotional outburst. Although during negotiations with Russian partners, they may concentrate on arguments rather than solving the problem, and I think you should have to be aware of this. They may view it as mental exercise rather than means of finding the truth, and they may deviate from the topic of discussions. And so one needs to be, I guess, just patient. And
the question from Tanya is, so do you use a third person to settle a conflict?
I know this is a very good way to solve problems in other countries, but I wouldn't say that in Russia. Intermediates have to be trusted. And to develop trust, you know, in Russia, it just takes time. So I wouldn't say that mediation during negotiations and conflict resolution would help a lot here in Russia. Not in this culture, because they have to trust. They have to really trust the commitment, the loyalty, the, you know, so to say, cognitive context has to be very equal. So I would say more no than yes, although in certain ways you can try, and probably you will have success, because if the mediator is skillful enough, knows how to deal with Russians, there might be a success. Another point that I would like to add here is that an international partner could be puzzled by the general resolutions that Russians tend to make after they accomplish the deal. Things like, for example, to increase, to improve, to take measures, rather than, you know, setting concrete measures to do something. So you have to really know that you have to go further to the details because they may not be there at first stage of negotiations. You really have to dig further. And this card actually illustrates the diversity and the controversy of these communicative patterns of Russians. In a conversation, you can expect a Russian to hold a single point of view and rarely change it. True or false? True and false. I would have difficulties to choose whether it's true or false, because I would say true. Russians are very often kind of obstinate, trying to kind of, hit the ground and win. But on the other hand, it could be false, because Russians may hold two opposite opinions at the same time. And no is not always the final answer in Russia. Is it true? Yeah. The former Minister of International Affairs, Mr. Gromyko, was given a name Mr. No, because his no means no. But often it might be a request for time to consider, especially, especially in other contexts, outside probably business, because people are more flexible. Russians would offer other alternatives. Russians would appreciate to be asked twice or three times, regarding one and the same issue, just to understand that it is taken seriously by the partner. Okay. And then here is this Russian saying, which might be very confusing, totally confusing. Да нет, может быть. Literally, it means yes, probably, and no in one statement. Almost impossible to get the meaning, but you can hear it, because it's just, depends on many other, ways, whether they would say yes or no, more ambiguous, more high context here than, Westerners, Germans, for example. I'm generalizing here, of course, but still, I would like to, really underline this point, because in my understanding, it's very important. Do we go further, or do we stop for questions? I'm not sure whether we have time to cover the two issues that I'm having, the two more issues that I would probably like to comment, is perseverance. And I think that the duality of Russian nature is clearly revealed by this value as well, because people, actually, this is in contact with the previous question that I received regarding whether they would be reluctant to do things, with commitment. They would, if they do face the real urgency towards something. Once they find it very urgent, they would do anything. They would find their own ways to do things. But they can still be very, reluctant to act, to implement, to improve something if they don't find the urgency in it. Okay, and it's not even the I wouldn't say that they would be tolerant. They would be rather enduring, doing something. They would be patient, enduring things they may not share as valuable. But then if they find it really meaningful and critical to themselves, they will do it. And the illustration is in this diversity share, that confronted by defeat, Westerners tend to respond actively, holding meetings, organizing plans. Russians are ready for the worst scenario. They are always ready for the worst scenario, that they are able to absorb what happens more readily than Westerners. The card says, and I tend to agree with this, because they would live in perseverance, they would live in uncertainty, in instability, and this is what actually, impacts their behavior. The last one, very, very quick. Before I go to this equivalency and awareness, I would like to ask a very quick question. Why do you think a Russian businessman would refer to historical past and recall, for example, the first space Sputnik launched in Russia in 1957, when he speaks with his presumable international partner? Why would you think he would do that? Participants, viewers, chat. Any ideas? Proud of the
answer
country.
is pride.
Pride, yes. In par with the leading technological countries. Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, actually, Russian people strive to equivalency, to competency, education, and professionalism when they meet with international colleagues. They believe that much of their talents is not revealed due to the Russian state system, but the economic and technical resources, the human resources are out there. So they would refer to the history when they feel this lack of equivalency, so to say, from the partner. And but although when I shared this message with my daughter, she said that her generation would never refer to this, she said, to these, facts about the first Sputnik, the first cosmonaut, the first whatever, but my generation probably would. So I thought that it could be worthy, of mentioning that it is not bragging or, trying to make an impression on partners, but it's more of a notion he wants to transfer. He understands that, the industry, the current industry in Russia is not equivalent to the, British, German one technologically, but he believes that the resources are out there and it is possible to progress soon enough to become equal. And equality here is probably not, less appropriate than equivalency. This desire to equivalency probably emerges more vividly after the collapse of the Soviet Union, when the country moved from the dictatorship and centralized economy to the market economy, from the empire to the federal state. And I witnessed when trainings from the Western managers in Russia failed once they underestimate the cognitive context of negotiations. That's why I actually realized that this kind of awareness and cognitive context is important, in any cultures. It's important when you deal with any country, and to find this unambiguously perceived worldviews, hopes, and structures is a real art, which we all desire to achieve, of course. Often enough in history, Russians were being looked down by others. Yeah, it has to do with history a lot, with all these, historical implications deeply ingrained. And the last illustration is that when you are face-to-face meeting with Russian counterparts, you can expect that they will. They will? Which answer? A, B, C? Okay.
A.
Yeah. Offer you refreshments, create a nice atmosphere, build relationships, and tell you a lot about the history of the city and company. Thank you very much. And I would finish with this riddle again, which probably would, you would say that you understand now that you don't understand anything about Russians, because, it seems very, very controversial, all the issues that we brought up. But this is something that Winston Churchill said, and I thought that it would kind of, would finish my presentation, and I would welcome your further questions by email. I really, really appreciate your interest in your nice comments and, revealing your sincere interest in what I am sharing. Here is my email and the website of the graduate school. I found it here in the university, which is called Krauss Lab, very informal type of education, and my consultancy, Diversu. So I would be very happy to continue our discussion and to see you at the congresses, conferences, anywhere we could cross.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Olga. I really want you to just spend additional 60 seconds for a little polling that I would like you to fulfill. So please, if you could just spend a little. We have one question that hasn't been answered, and it was a very important one. One of the participants, Jean-Pierre, asked, what do you do with Russian culture when you do not drink?
What do you do what?
When you do not drink, so how do you build your relationship when you are not a drinker? So I guess, Jean-Pierre, I would just, send you to Olga for a individual consultation on this.
I would be happy to consult on this. I would really be happy, because this is a great point to raise, actually. Unfortunately, it's been raised in the end, and I don't have time to comment, but I would be happy to really, go deep into this issue of, drinking and making relationships.
Exactly. So one more time, thank you all for participating. I'm inviting you warmly to participate in the next webinars that are listed on the site. And yes, thank you for fulfilling the polls. Have a lovely day, afternoon, whatever still is in front of you.
Спасибо большое, спасибо to everyone, всем, Agnieszka and all the participants, спасибо большое. And I hope we will meet someday in person, and we will build relationships to do real things.
Exactly. That can be done through the congresses. So we warmly also invite you to Dublin on May, when the Congress will be taking place.
And then I'm not sure whether I have the right to kind of, announce it, but in 2018, there might be a Congress. I'm not sure whether I may review it, but in Gdańsk and in Kaliningrad. So that could be a chance. At least we started negotiations now with the organizers. So that could be a real chance in 2018. But I would like to be on board. They invited me on board, so I would be more than happy to meet you guys there. Thanks again. Really appreciate your investments of time and interest. And Agnieszka, thank you again. And
thank you.
Have a very nice day. For those who are in the morning time, the evening for those who are in the afternoon, and good night for those who are, enjoying the evening right now.
But we have a beautiful comment. Surprisingly, Russians are similar to the Japanese.
Yeah, we are. In very many ways we are, especially those who have lived in the far east of Russia, believe me. I feel like an alien in Kaliningrad in so many ways. But again, this is another story. This is another story.
This is for Doing Business with Russia, the sequel.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. People are still saying their goodbyes.
Yeah. Sending you an blessings. Merci.
Okay, I guess the polling can be ended.
I move. Thank you.
So thank you very much, and we're ending the recording and the meeting. Thank you.